Now, for more on the story, we're joined in the studio by Igor Khokhlov, a political expert from the Institute of World Economy and International Relations. Thank you very much for being here with us. Well, as you've just heard from this report, this problem is massive and may have huge implications for other countries. So what can be done to stop the drug flow?
Actually, no, drug flow is just one problem in line of many problems the Afghan government faces and the United States and their allies do face in Afghanistan. And to name a few, those we have to talk about the Taliban growing, influence growing all over the country. We have to take about other movements getting into Afghanistan, like the Islamic movement of Uzbekistan. So the problem is that United States and their allies face so many challenges in Afghanistan, and the situation has spiraled out of control already. So you see, drugs are just not a priority now.
So could you tell us a bit more about the challenges that the U.S. is facing there?
You know, as Bush administration failed in nation building in Afghanistan, they were too focused on going on against Saddam Hussein. So actually they ignored Afghanistan for many years, and now Obama administration is trying to correct that. But you know, it's too far too late. So I think that there is a number of challenges the United States faced. First of all, Taliban is gaining more and more public support in Afghanistan itself and in Pakistan. Also, there are lots of radical Islamic movements from ex-Soviet republics of Central Asia, and those movements, like Islamic movement of Uzbekistan, are now fighting against Americans in Afghanistan and Pakistan. They're fighting against Kabul government, they're fighting against Islamabad government. And you know, the situation now is so complicated, so Americans have faced so many problems that fighting drugs isn't just a priority at the moment. And that's, I think, the biggest tragedy for those countries that neighbor the region.
Well, it looks like the country won't be able to tackle this problem by itself, but given the complexity of the situation there, could we say that some countries perhaps maybe even taking advantage of Afghanistan's drug problem?
You know, I don't think that any country can take advantage of that, but I think that the United States just ignore the issue. They have their own problem with drugs coming from Bolivia, coming from Colombia, and Drug Enforcement Administration in the United States is fighting those drugs coming from the Latin America through Mexico, and they just don't care much about that. And on the contrary, European allies of the United States, they're pretty worried by the influx of drugs coming into their country, but you know, actually it's American war. Americans are taking the highest toll in the war. They're the major force fighting Talibs, and actually they just ignore the problem. I don't think they take advantage, or there's some kind of conspiracy you see around that, but they just don't care much about it, and that's pretty tragic.
Okay, let's take a look at the situation now. Russia and its southern borders, as the country has several Central Asian borders, several Central Asian states. How concerned Russia is about this problem?
Unlike the Soviet Union that had a common border with Afghanistan, modern Russia doesn't border Afghanistan, so there's a number of ex-Soviet republics, Central Asian republics, that are between Afghanistan and Russia. But you know, the problem is that Russia doesn't have actually border, a well-guarded border between Russia itself and Kazakhstan, so that influx of drugs coming from Afghanistan, because north of Afghanistan we know those are Tajiks, and they smuggle drugs into Tajikistan. Sometimes it's just one family divided by a river that crosses two countries, and then the traffic gets into Russia, and then after having affected Russia, it gets further into Europe. So you see, European countries are pretty affected by that. Russian law enforcement, to my mind, is one of the most effective in the world. And in fighting against drugs, due to the specifics of the situation inside Russia, Russian Drug Enforcement Administration isn't corrupt, you see. So unlike many other countries, like in Latin America, where you see that's common business between police and drugs, in Russia, I have never found, I've been studying the issue for 15 years, I've never found any signs of high-ranking corruption. So Russian Drug Enforcement Administration is pretty effective. It's rather brutal, but it's quite effective. The problem is there's a large amount of drugs coming from Afghanistan. First they get into Central Asian states, and then further to Russia and to Europe. So that's a big problem, and we can solve the problem by fighting drugs in Afghanistan itself. Otherwise, even the most effective drug enforcement can solve the problem completely.
All right. Igor Khokhlov, political expert from the Institute of World Economy and International Relations. Thanks very much indeed for being here with us in the program.